I've heard a lot of people say that the Netflix documentary left out some details that they think are important, so let's just talk about the entire thing. We're talking about Mackenzie Shirilla. I have covered this case before, but it's been a while. Around 5:40 a.m. on July 31st, 2022, a horrible car crash took place in Strongsville, Ohio. It was in the early hours of a Sunday morning, meaning that not a lot of people were out and about and no one was there to call emergency services right away when the crash took place. It wouldn't be until after the car had run through the lawn, hit a sign, crashed into a brick building, and practically split in two that a witness would see the aftermath 45 minutes later and call it in. Inside the car were three people. 19-year-old Davion Flanagan was in the back seat, 20-year-old Dominic Russo was in the passenger seat, and 17-year-old Mackenzie Shirilla was the driver. Every single one of them was trapped inside, all of them unconscious. Davion, who was sitting in the back, had been thrown from the force of the crash, and he was found on Dominique's lap. Despite their best efforts, neither of them were able to be saved, and they were both pronounced deceased at the scene. It's believed that they passed away on impact. Mackenzie Shirilla had to be cut out of the car. She was found trapped underneath the dashboard. She had critical injuries, including a broken leg and broken ribs, and was light flighted to the hospital immediately, where she would go on to receive extensive care. As horrible as the car crash was, she did survive, and she would eventually recover from her injuries. At the scene, on an officer's body cam, you can hear him say, "Rest in peace, buddy," and then he says, quote, "This is just going to be a nightmare of a day for this whole department," end quote. The night prior, that friend group had all been together, and the plan of them was to have a sleepover. Yet for reasons we may never know, Mackenzie and Dom, after having been asleep, woke back up around 5 in the morning and decided to drive home. Those two were a couple. They had been dating for a few years, and Davion was a close friend of theirs. Davion had spoken to another friend who offered to drive him home, but he decided to get inside of that car because he just wanted to go home to go get some sleep. Obviously, he never made it back home. The reactions of the parents when they were informed were devastating. Davion was the oldest brother to his two little sisters. All three of them had been adopted by their parents. They called Davion's dad at work to let him know, and very quickly that entire family's world was turned upside down. Don's sister and Don's dad were completely in shock, and one of their immediate thoughts was concern for Mackenzie and hoping that she would make it. Mackenzie's parents drove and got to the hospital as soon as they could, and given that she was the only survivor, authorities wanted to speak to her when she was stable enough to see if they could get a statement from her. But when they got to the hospital, they were a little bit taken aback about how hesitant the Shirilla family was to speak to them. And there's something called Pig Latin, okay? The definition is, quote, "Pig Latin is a playful language game used to conceal words or talk secretly," end quote. So it's like a made-up language where you move the first consonant of a word to the end and add AY to the end of it. So for example, pig becomes igpay and Latin becomes Atenlay. I guess it's a common thing for adults to use around their kids so that the kids do not understand what they're saying. Well, at the hospital, when they're informed that this is now going to be an investigation they have to look into, Mackenzie Shirilla is talking to her mom in this language or a very similar one. And in whatever language, you can hear her tell her mom, quote, "Can we tell the police I had a seizure? Can we tell the police?" something like that. Then she asks the officers if they could just take away her license for 10 years or something like that. So she is showing concern, but only for herself, right? So it kind of comes off as odd given that one of the victims was her close friend and the other one was allegedly the love of her life. The news of the crash spread quickly throughout Strongsville, and it seemed like people either thought one of two things: that this was a tragic, terrible accident, or that this was planned and done on purpose with the intent to murder. So like I said, Mackenzie Shirilla and Dominic Russo were a couple that was known to be constantly on and off. If you asked Mackenzie's parents what their relationship was like, they would tell you that they were in love, that they were soulmates, and that they probably would have gotten married. However, if you asked Dom's mom, who did know Mackenzie very, very well because they had spent a lot of time together, she would tell you that their relationship was toxic and unhealthy. And some, not all, but definitely some friends would agree with that as well. It was a common thing for Mackenzie and Dom to be constantly arguing. And Mackenzie is the type of girl that thinks it's my way or the highway. She has said that in her own words before. She was also extremely possessive over Dom, and more oftentimes than not, very controlling and very jealous. She was the type of girlfriend that would be like, "Oh, you want to break up with me? Well, that's too bad because I call the shots and I say that we are going to be together forever or else." Relationship aside, classmates have described her to be selfish and to carry around an ego that showed that she didn't really seem to care about anyone else but herself. The descriptions that multiple people have given make her sound reckless, self-centered, and insensitive. And some classmates have even said that they were not surprised about the crash at all because it sounded like something that Mackenzie Shirilla would do out of anger. This is a quote from Dom's older sister, quote, "From what I heard from his buddies and people that were close in their age, not that they saw the crash coming, but it wasn't a surprise for a lot of people based off her behavior and how she was," end quote. Mackenzie was also known to use substances daily and drive her car while doing so, which is extremely reckless yet important because it shows that she is more than capable of driving her car in that state, even though you shouldn't, but given that she pretty much did it every single day. So there were three possibilities. One, that maybe the night of the crash she had consumed a stronger substance that was found in her car that made her lose control, and she did black out and she did crash on accident. Yet, when the test results came back, there was nothing significant found in her system. The second option, two, that it was an accident as a result of POTS. POTS is a blood pressure disorder that Mshellly had that can cause sudden dizziness, lightheadedness, and blackouts. But the question there is, if POTS was a real big safety concern, why would Mshellly be allowed to drive at all? It was her mom that was arguing the most about this being the case, really making her concern for POTS known. Yet Mshellly was 17 years old. She had had her license for a while, but she was not an adult. And when she got her license, her nor her parents ever mentioned POTS at the DMV. Her mom signed off on allowing her daughter to have a license to be able to drive wherever, drive on the highway, because there was no real concern about her experiencing dizziness. To then argue that this is what happened when two people are gone, it feels convenient. Leaving the third option to be that Mshellly got in a fight with her boyfriend, threatened him, and crashed into that building on purpose to end it all, without considering the consequences, without considering the many people that she would hurt, and without even giving a second thought to a person that she described to be her friend sitting in the back seat, Davion Flanagan. So as investigators start learning more about this couple and about what the dynamic of the relationship was, mixed with evidence from the crime scene along with CCTV footage that would later be revealed in court, things started to look pretty bad for Mshellly. And officers had reason to believe that she could have been responsible for causing this tragedy on purpose, that purpose being death. And it didn't help her case when a friend of Dominic Russo spoke to authorities and told them about something that had happened previously. That friend had been on the phone with Dom during a fight with Mshellly when he heard her say, quote, "I will crash this car right now," end quote. This wasn't the night of. This was a previous night, a previous incident when she did not go through with it, but she did mention that she would and that she could. Dominic's mother, Christine, had also been contacted by her son weeks before the crash, specifically because he was scared, because they were arguing again and Mshellly was driving erratically on the freeway with Dominic in the car. That time he called his mom asking for help, but Mshellly would claim that it was actually Dominic who would grab the steering wheel and try to crash the car, not her. We also know that at a different time, Mshellly had threatened to key Dominic's car and to break off a handle off of a door after he refused to let her come inside. Into his house, by the way. All of this was evidence that authorities were gathering to say that this was part of a pattern of escalating controlling behavior in the weeks leading up to July 31st of 2022, and they believed that it formed an argument that the crash was not as a result of an accident, but instead the culmination of that pattern. But what really confirmed the suspicions they already had were the results of the tests that they received in regards to the car itself and the CCTV footage they were able to get their hands on. Because the only other option left, apart from the ones that I already mentioned, would have been that the car itself malfunctioned. Yet, when the car was taken apart piece by experts, it was confirmed that every single thing in that car was working as it should have been, and this was not a result of any sort of mechanical error. There was nothing wrong with the car. But what the car data did show was that only seconds before the impact, Mshellly inexplicably sped up and made a hard steering turn to the right directly into that brick building. She had been driving 25 miles an hour, and then in the span of 20 to 25 seconds, she sped up to 100 miles an hour. Data from the car confirmed that her right foot was pressed down on the accelerator to its full extent, pushing the car over 100 miles per hour, and that the brake pedal was never applied at any point before impact. Mshellly's foot never touched the brake pedal. In those 20 to 25 seconds it took for her to speed up, her foot stayed solely on the accelerator the entire time. She had time to decide to slow down, but she did the opposite. And to go back to her diagnosis of POTS, if this had been accidental, if she blacked out and lost control of the car, authorities felt that that would have been shown in the way that she was driving. Yet on CCTV footage before the car gets onto the road that it would speed down, Mshellly is seen driving completely normal. Driving the speed limit, like I mentioned, 25 miles per hour, putting her blinker onto turn, turning carefully and normally, clearly in control of the car. Then 58 to 59 seconds later, she speeds up and does not try to stop. Authorities also uncovered GPS data that showed that Mshellly had driven that exact route of the crash days before the incident multiple times, the route which was one that she did not usually take, which prosecutors cited as premeditation. This was calculated. It was not a road that she had any reason to be on. The fact that she had driven it beforehand suggested to the prosecution that she had scouted the location in advance. They also believe that she planned it to do it 2 days before her 18th birthday so that she could not be tried as an adult. So, combined with the prior threats, the prior route, the sharp right turn of the steering wheel, and the full acceleration, prosecutors argued that this was no medical episode. It was not an accident. It was not a moment of recklessness, and they were now confident that these were planned murders. On November 4th, Mackenzie Shirley was arrested on multiple charges, including aggravated murder and aggravated vehicular homicide. And I saw someone say that during her arrest, specifically in the clips shown in that Netflix documentary, Mackenzie's only concern is not being able to wear her bracelets and keep them on while in custody, and her friend in the documentary argued that she wanted to keep those bracelets because Dom gave her the bracelets and they were the last things that she had from him. But in that same documentary, there are clips shown of how Dom showered Mackenzie with gifts. He would give her clothing and other items very often, which I doubt she threw away. So her friend's argument to me just kind of sounds a little bit irrelevant. And up until that point of her arrest, she had been in communication with Dom's family a lot. Dom's dad and sister had gone out of their way to spend time with Mackenzie, trying to help her as much as they could as she navigated the grief and the losing of her alleged love of her life and her friend. And in a text exchange between her and Dom's mother, Mackenzie wrote that she did not do anything on purpose. Christine says, quote, "What is the last thing that you remember?" To which she responds with, quote, "I remember turning on the street and then my vision fades to black. It really pains me not being able to remember anything. I promise I would tell you," unquote. Davion's family as well wanted to believe that this was an accident, yet everything changed after her arrest. She would remain in custody up until her trial, and despite her being 17 years old the day of and turning 18 2 days later, the court made the decision that she would be tried as an adult. Mackenzie's trial began August 7th of 2023. Now let's talk about evidence that was presented. But real quick, in the courtroom, she's shown wearing some sort of arm cast, right? There was no medical reason as to why she would have been needing to wear that. She was fine. She was just wearing it because she wanted to, I guess. I don't know. You decide. Anyway, first of all, CCTV footage of the crash was shown, and it left the entire courtroom emotional. Davion's mom was sitting there and she watched it for the first time. She had to run to the bathroom because she got sick. She couldn't watch it. There were autopsy photos shown of both Davion and Dom, and during that, Dom's mom had to run out of the courtroom. Experts came up and testified about the gas pedal on the car, saying that it was pushed to its full acceleration capacity, pushed all the way down as far as it could go without any attempts to ever hit the brake. Also making sure to mention that 1 second before the crash, Mackenzie did a hard right turn on the wheel and into the brick building. There was evidence presented of Mackenzie's selfish and violent behavior, including a recording that Dom took of one of their arguments, where Mackenzie is heard threatening his property and calling him horrible names. And then there's social media evidence. So following the accident, Mackenzie made it known on social media that she was grieving. She posted videos of her and Dominic saying things such as, quote, "I miss you, Nug. I still feel like you're just going to walk in the door any second. I miss your laugh, your perfect smile. God, you are the last person to deserve this. You had such a perfect life ahead of you. I wish I told you all this more. Please wait for me," end quote. And initially, a lot of people did feel bad for her until it almost seemed as if she was over it. She was grieving and heartbroken for about 5 minutes, and then she seemed to be completely fine. In the courtroom, there were screenshots shown of her activity on social media, screenshots of events that happened shortly after Mackenzie was released from the hospital after spending weeks there recovering, but obviously from before she was formally charged. Between that time period on social media, she and her mother were responding to a modeling agency in the comments of an Instagram post trying to work with them. Mackenzie was posting pictures of her friends out celebrating Halloween, dressing up as a corpse for Halloween, driving a car, and even attending a concert. And if you want my personal opinion, those are not signs of a person who is grieving and mourning, who just lost her boyfriend and good friend. Mackenzie's mother made a statement in the court. Don't even get me started. In my opinion, she made it so much worse for her daughter. Her mom went up there to talk about Mackenzie, trying to shut down any rumors or beliefs that she didn't care and that she wasn't mourning, which I get, right? I guess as a mother, you want to protect your daughter, but the lack of sympathy is actually insane, to the point that the judge interrupted her and said, quote, "I'm hearing an awful lot about your daughter. I'm not hearing very much about the 2 deceased people," end quote. The mom said, "I'm asking you for leniency because this was a tragic accident she does not remember. And Don, Davion, he's a new friend and I'm so sorry." And the judge was like, "A new friend? What does that mean? His life is worthless?" It was bad. Mackenzie would have been better off if she just told her mom to sit down, honestly. At her sentencing, the judge said, quote, "There's only one person who's responsible for the pain of everyone in this room. That person is you, Mackenzie. Nobody else is responsible. This isn't the fault of Dominic's family or Davion's family or your family." Mackenzie was found guilty and she was sentenced to 2 sentences of 15 years to life to be served concurrently. She will be 34 years old by the time that she's eligible for parole for the first time. Also, following the release of The Crash on Netflix, the Netflix Netflix documentary on May 15th, Steve Sherilla, Mackenzie's father, was placed on administrative leave from his job. He works for a school in Cleveland and was placed on leave after the school received comments and allegations about his conduct and moral position as seen in the documentary. The school issued a statement saying, quote, "We are investigating allegations made on social media that one of our teachers has demonstrated poor judgment. Upon learning of the allegation, the school acted immediately and placed that teacher on administrative leave," end quote. That's all. Let me know your thoughts on this. I am very curious to know all of your opinions, so I will be in the comment section. Thank you for spending time with me today. I hope you guys are having the best day. If not, go do something to make it the best day. Make somebody happy, and I will see you in my next video. Massive kiss on the forehead to every single one of you.